Welcome to the Storytime Adventure for Adults video series. Today we will be reading Part 1, Chapter 1983, pages 35 to 38 of Songs from the Depths by Meg Swanson. Brin sat hunched over, chewing on what was left of her fingernail and rocking slowly. Patrick stood behind her, wanting so badly to reach out and touch her, to calm the tension in her rigid body, and yet he refrained. From the window, he could see Selkies watching him from the rocky island where they waited every year for Brin. It was his fault that they were still waiting. He should have gone to them sooner to explain the situation, but now? Well, it was too late. Brin wouldn't leave the house anymore. Patrick ran a hand through his curly brown hair and sighed. At the first sign that something was wrong, he should have gone to Brin's family. Every year, at the first frost, Brin would bundle into her favorite cardigan, an old wool one that Patrick's mother had knit for him, pull a stocking cap over her cascade of fiery hair, smile brilliantly, and declare, "It's time to say goodbye to the season." The door would slam behind her, and she would walk for an hour or two. Patrick would watch from the kitchen until she disappeared into the trees. This year had been different. She left, and it was almost 10 o'clock at night, and Patrick was still standing at the kitchen window. "What the hell? Brin?" Silence answered. Patrick searched the house, all the while wondering where the day had gone and what happened to Brin. After he ransacked the inside, Patrick ran outside. The small slice of moon barely gave enough to light to his dock, let alone the woods surrounding the rest of his land. A rustling sound to his right made him turn. "Brin! Thank God!" She tripped forward, a hand pressed to her forehead. "Patrick? Am I home? Thank the goddess!" All concerns about his own missing time flew from his brain as he ran to his wife. "Are you okay? Where have you been?" Patrick cupped her face in his hands, looking for any sign of injury. He pulled a stray dove feather from her hair and watched Brin's eyes go wide. Brin hugged Patrick to her so tightly he could barely breathe. "I got lost. I'm so scared." That was the start. When he mentioned a few days later that it was time to get her fur out of the attic, she looked him straight in the eyes and said, "What fur? What do you mean?" Patrick had tried to question her further, but she became increasingly agitated, so he left her alone. Brin only remembered her husband and their life together, but nothing that had come before. At first Patrick was glad her memory was gone, glad she couldn't remember her family. If Patrick was completely honest with himself, he was tired of sharing her, tired of her leaving every winter to go where he couldn't go. He knew that he should be grateful for how understanding Brin's family were, how terrified they had been as they sat watching from their rocks as Brin took human vows and hand-fastened herself to Patrick. Year after year, Patrick had made good on his promise and let Brin go to her family, but jealousy lurked in the back of his mind. What does she do with them? Why does she need to go with them every year? Now that Brin had lost the memory of who she really was, Patrick rationalized that he wasn't breaking his promise to Brin's family. She was allowed to go see her family, any time she wanted to. She just didn't want to leave anymore. That wasn't his fault. He finally had what he wanted. Brin. As the seasons changed from fall into winter, Patrick had watched his wife's decline. Now it might be too late to save her. Brin's once shiny copper hair was lifeless and matted to her head. She had all but stopped eating, and her skin, once luminous with an inner moon glow, was now dull and slightly gray, as though she had not been able to wash all the grime away. It wasn't just her physical appearance that worried Patrick. It was her growing anxiety. Anxiety? Ha! He thought sardonically. This is paranoia. Patrick watched Brin jump and jerk every time he moved, and bark at every sound. The sound was inhuman, and it reminded Patrick that Brin's family was waiting outside. Sighing, Patrick squared in front of Brin. "Honey, I have to run an errand." He squinted at her. "Do you understand? I will be back in about an hour." Brin looked through Patrick with wide eyes so dilated Patrick could no longer see the brown of her irises. She continued to chew on her finger. It was bleeding now. He reached over and pulled her hand from her mouth. Gently he squeezed her hand. "I'll be back soon." That was Part 1, Chapter 1983, pages 35 to 38 from Songs from the Depths by Meg Swanson. Next week we will continue reading from that chapter. If you can't wait until then to hear how the story goes, feel free to purchase the book at www.megswanson.me. To learn more about this video series and the Humanities Evolution videos, feel free to visit my website at www.reneeannhughes.com. If you would like to contribute to these series, please feel free to become a Patreon. Details for joining are on my website, and also please subscribe to this YouTube channel so you won't miss any new videos. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.